Hi, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from YourBlackWorld.com, and today Nomalanga Mhlauli-Moses, one of our contributors and editors with Your Black World, wrote an article about Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan is the vice presidential nominee for the Republican Party, and Paul has used the I had a black girlfriend defense to combat those who might accuse him of being racist. And Nomalanga wrote an article about that and whether or not that should actually mean anything. And I'm going to let her tell you what she said and why she said it. So first of all, Nomalanga, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Boyce. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Now, I know you're a wife and you're a mom and you've got a lot of stuff going on, so I'm going to make this pretty quick. Tell me about your article and what inspired you to write it and, what were your conclusions?
Well, I've been watching this week. There's been a lot of blogs and articles and news coverage on this talk about Paul Ryan's girlfriend used to be, or at least he used to have a black girlfriend, and now he's married, obviously not to a black woman. And my first inclination was, okay, so he'll date us, but he won't marry us. But that was just jokingly. But I did find it curious that he then went on to start saying it as if it meant something, and then saying, well, I'm not a racist, or I do care about black people. Look at me, I once dated a black girl. But again, it doesn't really have any merit as far as I'm concerned, and that was the gist of my article. At the end of the article, I asked, well, does it make a difference in a presidential election if the number 2 guy on the ticket dated a black girl at some point in his life, and then he actually decided to take a woman seriously, picked a white woman? So in my book, that doesn't count. I'm sorry, it just doesn't count.
And I agree with you. I mean, there's a big difference between sleeping with someone and dating them and dating someone and marrying them, right? So there are different levels. And,
right.
And it reminds me of when Elena Kagan was nominated for the Supreme Court, and Roland Martin and I and some other people pointed out the fact that in all of her years at Harvard, she had given tenure and promotions to and hired over 30 people, and not one of them were African American. And so they came back and said, but no, we have African American visiting professors. We have professors that we hired for a year or two, and then they were gone. But I said, no, that's very different from actually giving them tenure and promoting them and making them a permanent part of the university, right? You can hire a black person for a year,
right.
But hiring them for a lifetime is a whole different thing. And I think the same thing can be argued here. Now, here's the subtlety though. Here's the thing where I'm going to defend Paul Ryan a little bit, and also sort of address this whole I have a black friend, I had a black girlfriend argument, which I think is kind of hilarious that people even fall for that. First of all, we have to admit that this whole idea that Paul Ryan is automatically racist because he doesn't believe in social programs, etc., that's kind of silly. There are lots of black people I know who have belief systems that are in alignment with Paul Ryan. They think that we spend too much money on social safety nets, welfare, Medicare, Medicaid, all that stuff. Maybe they don't even believe in affirmative action. They don't believe in abortion. They don't believe in gay marriage. So there are black people who think very much like Paul Ryan. And most of us watching this video right now know black people who think that way. So to somehow align a conservative ideology with racist ideology is flawed to begin with. But then at the same time, as Paul Ryan is he's combating ignorance with more ignorance by sort of using this I had a black girlfriend defense to explain why he possibly can't be racist because he had a black girlfriend. That's silly. That's like, for example, I know people who hate white people who have worked for white people, who know white people, who have lots of white friends, who maybe even slept with white women. So to me, it's like, the fact that you've had black friends or you work with a black person or work for a black person or had a black person working for you, that does not take away the possibility that you could be a racist. Because blacks and whites, we know we have to deal with each other, but that doesn't mean we always like each other or respect each other. So, now I'm going to ask you, first of all, I want to ask you, can you comment on what I just said? And then also, tell me more about your article and what you were thinking as you wrote it and all that good stuff.
Sure. I was just responding to what you were saying about, there was a level of ignorance in the first place about why we're calling Paul Ryan a racist in the first place, and then how he defended himself. Well, first of all, people who are not running for the number 2 position for running the country can say whatever they want, and they can be as ignorant as they want. Paul Ryan, on the other hand, is a man who's going to be charged with a very high level of responsibility, so we should hold him to a higher standard. And again, that whole, well, I had a black friend or a black girlfriend defense just doesn't cut it. So, yeah, there's a level of ignorance on both sides, but we do have to hold him to a higher standard. And that's kind of what I was alluding to in the article. And then in the article, I mean, obviously I did say in the article, I said, obviously this is not a college level thesis or dissertation when I made the two when I said the two possible reasons why he would possibly date this woman. The first reason was, maybe him and the woman just didn't care about racism and they didn't pay attention to all the talk and the chatter around them. They were two people who liked each other and that was it. And they dated, it didn't work out, they went their separate ways. I read an article that said that he actually attended the black woman's wedding with his wife. So, no hard feelings. I like you like me, but we chose something different. Then the second one was, the myth that black women fit into two different categories. Either, they're prude, and I said, or crude, meaning, they're only interested in one thing and lots of it. And obviously that's a myth and it's hilarious you couldn't keep a straight face, as I said. And I said, well, maybe he was just curious, and then he again cured his curiosity and went on with his life. And again, it was light, but I do honestly believe it was probably the first one. But I still think it's an issue that he decided to use that as his defense to say he does care about black people or that he's not a racist. I think he could have come up with maybe specific policy that he supported or hasn't supported, and that should have been his defense.
Well, and I agree with you. I think that's a good point. I mean, on one hand, it actually, you literally changed my opinion, because at first when you were saying that he has to be held to a higher standard, I was thinking about the fact that politicians, I believe, are a reflection of the people that they represent. So sometimes when we say we need to hold our politicians to a higher standard, that also means we need to hold ourselves to a higher standard, right? If we as a collective, meaning the Democratic collective, are throwing these silly allegations onto Paul Ryan that, oh, you must be a racist because you don't agree with us or because you don't agree with Barack Obama, then it only makes sense that he might come back with something that's equally silly. If I pull out a gun on you, then, you might pull a gun on me. But at the same time, I think that what you're saying does make sense, that I think responding with policy would certainly be a more appropriate, more productive way to respond. And at the same time, it's interesting because when you look at both sides of the fence politically, you see this happen all the time with politicians using style over substance to appeal to their constituents, right? You see the Obamas, they won't talk all day they won't talk at all about policy that they have that has supported the black community. They don't even mention the black community. They haven't mentioned anything about racial inequality or the prison industrial complex or anything like that. Or they barely mention those things, but yet they'll gladly do things that are symbolic, right? They will gladly, dance on TV or appear on BET or, appear on the cover of Essence magazine or something like that. And so you see all these politicians using style over substance or things that just really are simple-minded, very one-dimensional thinking, when really they should be talking about the policies that are going to save this country. So really no side is innocent or guilty in this, or excuse me, both sides are guilty. Although no side is entirely guilty nor entirely innocent. And I think that when you talk about Paul Ryan, I think what's important, though, is that if you disagree with Ryan, then you disagree with him. But don't assume that this man is a racist because he has values that differ from your own. Everybody who doesn't like Obama is not automatically a racist. But at the same time, it's interesting because there is an undercurrent of racism that does exist in our country, which may have played a role in shaping who Paul Ryan is and how he does perceive people of color. So I think that further complicates the whole conversation on race. Now I'm going to let you get the last word, and then I'm going to let you go and tend to your family. So Nomalanga, you told me a lot in terms of, the perception of white men dating black women. Personally, I think I can't blame them for loving black women. Black women are the most beautiful women in the world. My mama told me I had to say that or I'd get in trouble. No, just kidding, but I really believe that. So it's an easy thing to say. It wasn't a lie. when you talk about that, though, and you talk about this woman and the fact that she dated this man that was outside of her race, what do you think about that in general? The idea of black women dating men who are not black and sort of looking, outside the space of black men to find suitable mates, even if the guy happens to be a Republican. I mean, do you think that more black women should do that? Or do you think that that maybe there's something unique about this woman, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, my general thoughts about identifying the race of a person before you identify a person that's generally wrong. I also think there's nothing wrong with dating outside of your race. What I do have a problem with is when you do it with the primary thought being there's something wrong with the people in your own race, and then deliberately going outside of your race because you're avoiding whatever you think is wrong with your own race. That is a problem. Because, of course, that's an indication of self-loathing and an inability to address something in yourself. And that's really the only thing that I feel. I technically am in a culturally, what do you call it, intercultural marriage. I'm from Botswana, my husband is African American. So even though we look the same, we're very different. And again, my thought process, nor his, was not about, there's something wrong with my people, so let me go find something from another group. It was just two people who appreciated each other and they got together. And I think there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was mentoring a young lady that, or I was speaking to a young lady that I mentor on a regular basis. And one of the things I told her was I said, it's interesting because she tells me about the boyfriends that she meets, and it really is a rainbow coalition. One minute it's a Latino guy, the next minute it's an Asian guy, next minute it's a white guy or a black guy, etc. And so she's young and it's not anything inappropriate. It's just kind of her just exploring and dating. And I told her, I said, I actually think it's very good that you're not trapped in that thinking that you have to be with a black man, that's all, that you need. Because the truth is that you want a mate that's good for you, a mate that's healthy for you, a mate that's going to love you. And I said, unfortunately what I see is a lot of black women who might focus on, your race before they focus on your character, or they might, or even worse, you see cases where a woman says, I must date a black man who goes to church, and they focus on those things before they focus on the character of the individual that they're dealing with, and they end up in very bad situations, and so, but I did tell her, I said, one of the things that concerned me when you were younger is that I was concerned that you would think that everything black was bad, and that you had to leave your blackness in order to find something good for yourself. And so I said, look, as long as you are being fair and judging people for who they are and not the color of their skin, then I think it's great that you have a more global perspective, a broadened perspective on finding true love for yourself. Because what matters at the end of the day is finding a good man that treats you well. And if you do that, then I'm good. But if he's a jerk or a bonehead, I told her I'm protective of her, and I said if he's a jerk or a bonehead, I don't care what his race is, I'm still going to want to kick his butt. So anyway, enough of that. Well, thank you so much, Nomalanga Mhlauli-Moses. I truly appreciate your time.
Anytime. It's always a pleasure, Bill.
Yes, the pleasure's all mine. And everybody, that's Nomalanga Mhlauli-Moses. She is a contributor and editor of Your Black World. She also runs the website successfulblackwoman.com. And she's also the reigning Mrs. Botswana. And she just got third place in the Mrs. Earth competition. Mrs. Earth. That is so amazing. So anyway, you guys take care, and thank you all for checking us out. And until we meet again, please. What was that? I don't know what that noise was, but I'm going to pretend like I didn't hear it. Until we meet again, please stay strong, be blessed, and be educated. We are gone. Peace.